Good evening, everybody, and good evening, members of the public. Welcome to the planning meeting this evening. Can I ask for item 1, any apologies, please?
Yes, Chairman, I've received apologies from Councillor Jeff Loughman.
Item 2, appointments.
Councillor Sue Hill has been appointed as a substitute member for Councillor Loughman.
Thank you very much. Item 3, councillors, do we have any declarations of interest? What's on the agenda this evening? No, thank you. Item 4, minutes of the meeting beforehand. Is everyone having Beanie and Councillor Black seconded? Can I have a vote, please? All in favour, please? Thank you. It's the pronunciation. Item 5 in the agenda, items deferred. And items deferred is item 6 on the agenda, which we'll be going to next. Thank you. Item 6 on the agenda, which is the application DV 250032 15 Station Road, Walmer. Erection of 30 dwellings. Officer, would you like to give your report, please?
Good evening, Member. Good evening, Chair. This application is a full planning permission for 30 dwellings, associated access, parking, public open space, soft and hard landscaping, with existing dwelling to be demolished at 115 Station Road, Walmer Dill. As members will remember, this application was deferred from the previous planning committee in January in order to review the highway commutative impact of the proposed development. Since the previous committee, a highways addendum has been submitted to the local authority, to which KC Highways have provided further comments on. In addition to this, the dwellings fronting the development have been set back a further 2 metres. The visibility displays and tracking drawings have also been updated to reflect this and have been uploaded onto the website today to align with those plans that have been consulted on. Also, just to note, since the committee report was completed, a letter of support has been received. The representation comments on the application forming part of the local plan, building, affordable housing and the sustainability of the site. The application site is outlined in red here. The site has been allocated in the local plan for 25 dwellings under policy SPA 16 and is adjacent to the settlement confines of Dill. As such, in principle, the residential accommodation is considered acceptable in this location. Here is the proposed layout and landscaping plan showing how the 30 dwellings will be laid out. Although the proposal is for an additional 5 dwellings beyond the allocation, it's considered that the proposed dwellings can be sit comfortably within the site and would be of appropriate density, including in the area of open space. The proposal seeks to provide additional landscaping, planting and enhancement to the existing boundary treatments to create an overall landscape buffer. Since the previous application, the proposed dwellings fronting Station Road have been set back an additional 2 metres from the highway, creating increased separation distance of approximately 18.2 metres between the proposed dwellings and the closest dwelling opposite the site. Here are the proposed house types. The proposed dwellings would mainly comprise a 2-storey scale, with plots 10, 11 and plots 27 to 30 being of a single-storey scale. The proposed dwellings are considered to be constructed using red multi-brick, black fibre cement clays, black weatherboarding cladding and flintwork panelling. Given the variation of designs and scales within the vicinity of the site, the designs are considered to be acceptable. Since the previous committee, the addendum has been provided, which has reviewed the transport modelling of the Crossroad development, which is the land to the west of the application site. This modelling concluded that the development and the commuter impact would result in all junctions working within capacities. The addendum has also provided trip rate data, which found that the proposal would provide an additional 6 vehicle movements within a peak hour at the Station Road and the Dover Road junction. As such, it's not considered that the proposal would result in a severe impact upon the junctions, given the low additional movements. The proposed development would represent an improvement on the continuous footway and crossing points with the induction of the priority working systems. KCC Highway were consulted on the addendum and they have considered that the proposal meets the criteria of the local plan allocation and will not result in an impact upon the highway network and therefore not result in a commuter impact upon the sites. And they have maintained their position of no objection to the proposal. It was discussed at the previous committee regarding the improvements, along with an increased carriageway width. I've noted the measurements on this plan. They are approximate, and they show the access and how they vary along this site. So directly outside of this site, the width is 5 metres on the carriageway. However, this does narrow to 3.34 metres approximately in both ends of the site, where there's going to be the proposed priority junction in situ, where there'll be a giveaway system. This does then enable the management system where there can be vehicular speeds of a bit lower speed along this section of road. And then just for context, these photos show the view into the site from Station Road, and the second photo shows the view from the rear of the site looking towards Station Road. These photos show the existing two-storey dwelling of 115 Station Road to be demolished, along with the stations and associated outbuildings. These photos show the view from the existing southern boundary treatment. And then these photos show the view of the existing western treatment. Demonstrates that the scheme is well screened along the boundary of the site and will only be enhanced by further landscaping. As set out in the officer's report, the application is recommended grant subject to legal agreement and safeguarding conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have 2 speakers on this one. The first speaker for objections is Dina French. Please, could you come to this side?
Good evening, members. You will have already received the email which I sent you earlier this week. I'm sorry it was so long. I would have to say that I despair of the way in which DDC planners and Kent Highways, to a certain extent, try to manipulate and influence members just to get them to approve applications and get the numbers up, regardless of local people's comments regarding infrastructure, particularly at Station Road, Dover Road, Grams Road Junction. We live here, we know the problems. As I pointed out to you in my email, there are several discrepancies and omissions in the information being provided to you by the DDC planner. For example, no mention has been made of the feasibility study for a part signalisation scheme at the junction. As far as Kent Highways are concerned, their latest letter states, and I quote, "The Crossroad application funded a scheme that provided betterment at the junction, absorbing not only its own impact, but also that of Miller's Retreat, while retaining headroom for further modest development locally." This is simply not true. And I should be interested to know from the DDC planner what this so-called betterment refers to. I'm surprised to note that new plans dated yesterday, yes, yesterday, which show revised visibility displays and turning manoeuvres in the narrow section of Station Road have today been posted by the planner on the public portal. Why have these been produced when Kent Highways have already approved previous plans? Kent Highways cannot possibly have approved these revised plans, and it says they're revised. And in any event, there is no letter on the portal from them in this respect. From a public viewpoint, it looks like DDC planning are simply a post box. They get an application in, they contact the consultees, get a response and put a tick in the box. No query, no scrutiny, no judgment. If you decide to refuse this application, no doubt the DDC planning solicitor will advise you to think again, stating that the decision will be appealed and it will cost DDC lots of cash if the inspectorate finds in favour of the applicant. Regardless, please vote as you think fit. Vote for or against whatever the emotion is. Please don't abstain. This looks like you don't care. Thank you.
Can we have Vic Hester to come this side, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. I've just got to mention a couple of things. We did take heed of your reasons for deferment last time. We made some further investigations on the highway transport impacts, and you'll see from your agenda report that the KCC Highways has actually submitted quite a detailed response back in response to your concerns and queries, and it's quite a telling no objection from their point of view, and in fact betterment, because the development achieves the widening of the carriageway and also a wider footway as well. Secondly, although you didn't defer it for these reasons, during the debate we noted some of the members were concerned about the distances to the properties opposite, and I think one member said 1 metre, another member said take it back 1 to 2, another member said take it back to 2 metres, a further 2 metres. We've done that now, we've taken it back 2 metres, although you didn't defer it for that reason, but we understand your concerns about that. So we feel that the application is a good scheme and we commend it to you. Thank you, Chairman.
I open it to Councillor Nee.
Thank you, Chair. The principle of the development I have no problem with at all. The principle of the road improvements in the immediate area, I believe everything that can be done has been done, and it does incorporate the earlier application at Crossroad where they're looking to make improvements that they couldn't. I'm still unconvinced by the Station Road junction. Officers have written to me. I've seen a copy of the KCC response on the portal, the officer's summary. All I've seen in all the, and I've been involved with Station Road one way or another for about 15 years for various reasons. The only change to the junction with Station Road and Dover Road is a slight widening by the shop. And even then, when that was done, it wasn't as wide as was originally anticipated, because there's an area outside the shop that turned out to be part of the curtilage of the shop and wasn't highway, so they couldn't move as far as they could. And the sole intention of that widening anyway was to provide a swing for large vehicles to go in and out of Station Road more easily. All of the prior permissions that involved this junction have found that there was no untoward load on the junction, and even in the KCC response they say that they've accepted the cumulative effect. And you know, I can't argue against KCC because I'm not a transport expert. What I do know is that the volume of vehicles that are likely to use that junction are growing exponentially, with every application seeming only to be looked at in its own light in terms of the volume of vehicles it's likely to generate. The objector referred to the traffic lights that were proposed. They were proposed and they were dismissed ages ago because of the disruption it would cause in Dover Road, because of the proximity to the bus stop and the way the Grams Road and the Station Road junction work. So that hasn't ever going to be happening for ever, well, not forever, for about at least 5 to 6 years to my certain knowledge. So I can't see what further improvements there are to that junction. All the correspondence from KCC talk about improvements, and I take it and I get it and I accept that all the individual applications, their junctions onto Station Road and the improvements that they make in the locality to their developments are acceptable, more than acceptable. But the access from Station Road onto Dover Road has not been improved substantially. It's only been widened, and there are no future plans anywhere that I can find to make that better. So that junction has just got to accept the cumulative effect of all of these vehicles coming through. And as I say, I've got absolutely no problem I've got one question, but no problem with the principle of the development. In terms of my question, there's a reference in the officer's report. I was just looking for it, but I couldn't see it just now. To, as well as being stepped back by the 2 meters, the houses would not be looking directly, but they would be looking at some sort of angle. And I wonder if I can have some clarity on that, because the drawings that are submitted where they've been stepped back still show the same house types, which are C3, that were in the original application, which are windows facing directly forwards. Thank you.
I think my wording on that was more that it was like a slight angle of the existing dwellings and the proposed dwellings in the report. However, the relationship doesn't really hinge on this, and we considered that we wouldn't put any weight on this as such, and we consider it acceptable due to the separation distance itself rather than that angle. It was only really a slight angle to say they weren't completely directly looking over, but we think that the separation distance is sufficient.
Thank you very much. And for the record, what's the minimum separation distance now?
Proposing this site is 18.2. There isn't a defined separation distance as such front to front, but we consider that this is appropriate distance in comparison to other developments in the vicinity of the site, which are of a lesser distance as well.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Beanie.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate what Councillor Need was saying about obviously the junction at Station Road. It's not the best junction we've got in Deal to access onto the Deal Road. The application we've got in front of us, the applicant has gone away. Obviously, that we've now got a full response back regarding the traffic, and we've obviously now, I'm quite happy with KCC's newest wording and reports. We've also, the applicant obviously took off their own back, though potentially I think there was a lot of the councillors that was concerned about the distance, so they've moved that, though we didn't ask for a deferral on that. I think Station Road is going to be one of those roads in Deal that's going to be an issue for many years to come, as Councillor Neve said. This site in question has gone through the local plan process. It's gone through the consultation local plan process 3 times, and we've ended up with what we've got and where we are. So I'm going to recommend that we obviously go with the officer's recommendation and get this passed. Thank you for listening to us and moving it away from the boundary and coming back with what we asked for.
Thank you, Councillor Beanie. Councillor Out, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to just seek some clarity, I suppose, so that we're all transparent. On the updates, I suppose, that have happened very recently, I'm just wondering if we could just explain for everyone why they have happened so recently. If we know that this was coming to planning committee tonight, why updates were happening as soon as yesterday, particularly when the refuse tracking that was updated shows the refuse overhanging a path, which obviously KCC couldn't respond to, could they, at that time, because they wouldn't have seen these drawings. So are we confident that the response from KCC then is as full as it could be when we were receiving updates yesterday?
Yeah, sorry, I clarified at the beginning, but essentially the plans have been, the refuge visibility and the tracking plans have been updated to show the dwelling setback, so there is no change in terms of the visibility displays or the tracking plans that's shown. It's simply just to show the dwelling setback, just some more clarity, and make sure that the plans are all updated in accordance with the plans that were submitted on. So it's literally just the dwellings being set back, no change to the tracking of the visibility plans.
You. Got a couple of questions. In the original plan some time ago, there was an attenuation pond, and that has been replaced now by what's it called? A basin and infiltration basin and soakaway. Can you tell me, please, if that has got the same filtration rate? I'm concerned that this area gets soggy. And I'm wondering if this filtration rate for this infiltration basin and soakaway is sufficient, because that is quite a damp area when there are no houses built at all. So once there are houses built, I know they've got you know, the right sort of things around the houses, but I still think there might be a problem.
That's fine. They will be managed in the same way, and KCC studs are happy with the change in the drainage system. They have also suggested a condition to provide a drainage scheme which will deal with how that's disposed of on site or off site, so it won't result in any flooding. And that's, yeah, any flooding concerns that you've mentioned, they will be dealt with by the condition, and KCC studs will be consulted on that plan.
And can I just ask something else? Solar panels and ground pumps, none of those are mentioned in here. How does DDC, can DDC ask for these things, or is it a question of the builders do what building control says that they have to do, and that is not in building control? I noticed on the house type A, there looks as if there might be a solar panel at the top left.
So they did provide a sustainability statement alongside their application, which included some solar panels, EV charging points, water butts, smart devices. Obviously, that's something that we can't suggest that they put in, but they have provided that statement that they will be incorporating those sustainability benefits into their scheme.
All right, in all houses? Because you've only got one picture, type A.
I think that might just be that certain house type, but there will be obviously we can always add a condition on suggesting that they do provide some sustainability benefits, more solar panels, and such that they submit a scheme forward by condition, if that's what members would want.
Point of clarification. I'm just interested. I was very pleased to see that they're building 2 M43 standard bungalows. Are these private? Are these market houses, or are they going to be council properties?
They're market housing. Only the dwellings to the front are affordable housing.
Well, that's what I thought, but okay, so they're going to be private. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Do I have a seconder at all? Ah, Councillor Knight. Do you wish to add that to your proposal?
Regarding how is it going to be worded, the condition? And I don't obviously I don't mean to be disrespectful to obviously colleagues around the room, but with the new building regs now and the new building controls, obviously houses are built very in compliant, and sort of naturally when a new house is built, it's got to have sort of a minimum of a couple of kilowatts of solar. It's going to have an air source heat pump. Naturally, generally, yeah, they all have to have air source heat pumps. Yeah, so I think with modern day building control regulations, it builds a house to a fairly compliant standard anyway. So to be adding more conditions onto houses that just make them dearer, I don't agree with. Dearer to sell, I mean, and dearer to build, which inevitably makes them dearer to sell. So obviously, I don't think it's necessary, really.
Thank you, Councillor. Obviously, it's your proposal, so if you don't want,
I don't want to add no other. Yeah. If the officers are happy that building control covers what I think what the other councillor to my right is trying to say, then I don't think it needs to be added.
Does anyone wish to talk about anymore? So we have a proposal on the table to move the recommendation. It has been proposed and seconded. Can I ask the Democratic Service to carry out the voting, please?
There is a motion to approve the application which has been seconded, and that's in accordance with the report recommendation. If you wish to approve the application, you should vote for the motion. If you do not wish to approve the application, you should vote against the motion or abstain. If this motion fails to attract a majority of votes, the application will not have been determined and another motion and vote will be required. Can I please ask Gemma to start the vote and for members to cast their electronic votes? We have 9 votes in favour of the motion and 1 against, so that motion has been carried and the application has been approved.
And we move on to item 7, application DV 250133, 23 to 25 Worthing Street, Dover. Install of shutter doors. Can I ask the officer to read the report, please?
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, members. This application is for the installation of metal shutters at 23 to 25 Worthington Street in Dover. The shutters have already been installed and therefore this application is retrospective. This slide shows the site location plan with the site outlined in red on a prominent corner plot fronting both Worthington Street and York Street. The site does lie within Dover Town Centre Conservation Area. These are the existing elevations and the proposed elevations. When the shop is open and the shutters are up, they are contained within metal boxes to the tops of the windows, as seen here in a header box. These images are taken from Google Street View in August 2025, before the proposed development was installed. 3 images show the architectural detailing at the top of the windows, which has since been hidden by the boxes containing the shutters, which is these ones. And then these are from January this year, which show the shutters down when the shop is closed. As mentioned previously, the site lies within Dover Town Centre Conservation Area. Regard must therefore be had for the Planning, Listed Buildings and Conservation Areas Act 1990. Our statutory duty as a local authority is therefore to preserve or enhance the conservation area. This slide shows some images of the buildings to the northeast of the site to show the surrounding context and its historic and architectural detailing. Following Chairman's briefing on Tuesday and the discussions regarding heritage, I have since discussed this application with our Principal Heritage Officer to clarify our position on the application. She has also visited the site herself and she took these photos to fully consider the proposal and its impacts on the conservation area, and is also fully supportive of the recommendation for refusal this evening. Her comments are summarised as follows. These buildings, located on the southern end of Worthington Street, including the site subject of this application, date 1895 when the road was widened in an aim to boost Dover's commercial and shopping facilities. The architectural character in this area is defined by their height, the architectural detailing, some of which can be seen in one of the photos on my previous slides, and the use of traditional materials. A key highlight of this part of the conservation area is the preservation of historic and original shop fronts, specifically noting the site tonight. These structures are vital to the area, making a significant positive contribution to the unique character and heritage of the conservation area. The application building is designed to be a statement corner building addressing both York Street and Worthington Street, and is therefore a prominent historic building, which is therefore considered to be worthy of preservation. There is therefore an opportunity to enhance the historic character of this street as a late 19th century development through retaining as much of what remains as possible, and where historic shop fronts remain, they should be protected from inappropriate changes that would remove or conceal their architectural detailing. As mentioned previously, we have a duty to preserve or enhance conservation areas, and in this case it is not considered that the proposed development would do either, and would therefore cause unacceptable harm and detract from the character and appearance of the conservation area, of which there are no public benefits which would outweigh the harm. The shutters would therefore deaden the appearance of the shop unit, creating a fortified image, damaging the attractiveness of the area to the shoppers and the public. They form an incongruous and unattractive feature and would therefore also be contrary to policies HE1, PM1, HE2, R4 and SP8 of the local plan, and the DDC guidance on shop fronts and signage within conservation areas. The application is therefore recommended for refusal. Thank you.
We have one speaker for support. Ellie Bateman, would you like to come down and speak? Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Obviously, I'm speaking in support of the security shutters in the conservation area. We all recognise that the conservation area exists to protect and enhance the historic character, but let's put into context the current application. The shop is open 7 days a week with the shutters being up during this period. As you probably saw from the planner's pictures, the only time you see the shutters is in the dark. It's open 7 days a week. To add to this, there are also many other shops in the area which have shutters. This isn't the only one. Our main argument is that sometimes to preserve the existing conservation asset, you need to protect it. There have been numerous occasions in the town centre where shop windows get smashed or damaged. Once this happens, the existing glazing and the ornate timber framing is replaced with a new material. In essence, the true heritage aspect of the building is lost and you're just left with a replica. Today, many independent businesses within the conservation area face increasing challenges such as vandalism, break-ins, rising insurance costs. If we bring back thriving high streets rather than vacant units, we must ensure that businesses feel secure enough to invest and remain. Most importantly, and Dover's town centre is a prime example, empty shops damage conservation areas far more than well-designed security measures. Vacancy leads to deterioration and neglect. By contrast, supporting practical security solutions enables long-term occupation, maintenance and economic sustainability. Conservation is not about freezing places in time. It's about managing change thoughtfully and ultimately protecting the original features, which must be the ultimate concept. In short, protecting the historic character should not be the detriment of supporting local businesses. Our town needs to sustain investment, which will ultimately help preserve the very heritage value we like in Dover. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Officer, would you like to come back at all? I open it to councillors.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, most of the rest of Worthington Street looks shabby, bordering on derelict, pigeons going in and out of broken windows on other properties. The property already has UPVC windows above the shop. It would not detract from character and appearance of the conservation area, as most of the rest of the street is not in keeping with what the character should be. The officer states at 2.10, no harm to residential amenity, so accords with aims and objectives of the MPPF. The officer also states at 2.13, she acknowledges there is a benefit in securing premises from crime. Half of the property is outside of the conservation area, bordering a dual carriageway. It may be on the building itself, but it's not in that street. I believe that this application is subjective, and I find no reason to refuse this application, as looking at photos, it obviously enhances that end of Worthington Street. Heritage officer in this report showed no concerns. The shutters, as the speaker has just said, are up all day. They're only down at night when nobody can see them. So I move to grant permission with the reasons that I've just laid out.
Do I have any other speakers at all?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I would like to second Councillor Back's suggestion and just add to it from my point of view. Conservation areas and heritage areas are really important to Dover, and I'm sure to everybody in this room. If you know the history of that part of the town, we bulldozed most of it down when we put the roundabout in, and what we've left is a pretty ugly area anyway. I don't have a problem, certainly from a business point of view, that somebody wants to protect their property, and certainly the alarming increase in theft, damage, violence in the town suggests to me that this is a very prudent and sensible move for any business owner to look after their property. I also think that because this is a 7-day-a-week shop and it's shut at night, I really don't see how these shutters have any bearing on the daytime use and indeed the overall aspect of that part of the town. We whiz around there, and it's a roundabout, for goodness sake. We don't stand there and look at it. So from my point of view, I just can't understand why we would say no to this. So I would like to second Councillor Back. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williams. Councillor Williams, you wanted to speak? Councillor Hill, if you will, please.
Well, firstly, the installation of the metal shutters, this is retrospectively. So did they seek permit? Did they needed to seek permission but they didn't?
Yes, so
Yeah.
the shutters do require planning permission and they were put in place for that.
Right, okay. But nonetheless, I happen to agree with that gentleman, what he said, and I agree with you, so I don't see it an issue. Councillor Black.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Councillor Beanie.
Thank you, Chair. We're all going to start working in harmony. I don't quite believe this. Just need Councillor Pelt to come on board now. We'll be all good. One of my only questions today to the officers was, do we feel that obviously a refusal on this application is necessary? I've known that shop for many years. I think it was the accommodation shop, wasn't it? If I'm right.
Yeah.
And when it was the accommodation shop, the signage on the I'm sorry for anyone who runs the shop, but the signage above the shop was terrible anyway. It was never the most nicest of signage. We've got the Chinese shop just down the road with new modern sort of an opening and that sign above it. So I think we would be very petty as councillors to sit here and refuse something that someone's actually trying to protect, and I presume obviously to the officer the glass, the glazing is still there, isn't it, above underneath the blue bit, the glazing that you was concerned about, the detail, that bit there.
Sorry, what's your question?
So that what I'm saying is obviously the glazing is still in place, isn't it? So so in theory we could actually say that it's being protected. It's being protected for someone to maybe sort of unreveal in many years to come anyway, isn't it?
Yes, but I think the point is that, so even though the shutters are down at night time, or when the shop is closed, those header boxes that are already installed that have the shutters inside that are hiding the shutters during the day are hiding that historic and architectural detailing. So we shouldn't be wanting to hide elements like that. It should still be on show, and that is what actually contributes to the character and appearance of the conservation area.
And I totally agree with what you're saying, but obviously if they was to ever get smashed, there's no way in this world, an insurance company possibly, but if someone who's trying to keep a shop going is probably never going to replace it with that. So currently it's safe. So I agree with my fellow councillors, and I think that we would be really petty to turn this down this evening, even though it is retrospective. So that's all I've got to say, really, Chairman.
Councillor.
Thank you, councillors. Just before we go any further, I just wanted to just clarify a couple of the points, or come back on a couple of the points that have been made. Firstly, Councillor Back, you said that the conservation officer didn't raise any concerns. Sorry, heritage officer, sorry. That isn't quite correct. They had basically said that they didn't want to comment on the application because it fell beneath the threshold of the sort of applications they would usually comment on. But following Chairman's briefing, as the officer explained, she had actually gone back to conservation and asked for their input, and they have confirmed that they agree with the recommendation to refuse the application. So just to clarify that situation. The comments made about the shutters obviously only being closed at night, whilst that is correct at the moment, we're only dealing with the shutters here. Any other unit could go in there, any other shop could go in there, and we have no controls over that. So that could be a totally different situation. So for example, it could be, I don't know, a hairdresser's that might close at 5 o'clock, for example, and we would have no control over that. I think that was all I needed to clarify, but you were going to also mention something. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to, and I'm sure members have heard this a few times before, remind you that you make decisions in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. The officer's report does set out the relevant policies and identifies conflicts with them. So the starting point would be what does the plan say? What do the policies say? Is the application in accordance? If the answer to those questions is no, it's not in accordance, then the starting point would be, well, you should be looking to refuse it unless there were material considerations that suggested otherwise. Now, I know members have spoken about security of the premises, which is a valid concern, and it's certainly something you're entitled to take into account. But I also wanted to remind you of the statutory duty that's in section 72 of the Listed Building Act, and that talks about having to give special regard to the desirability, or special attention is what it actually says, of preserving or enhancing the character or appearance of the conservation area. And that's what the heritage officer's comments go to, really. She's commenting on the impact of this proposal on the character or appearance. Now, what the cases on that have said is that you should give considerable importance and weight to the desirability of preserving or enhancing the conservation area. So that is practically what you do when discharging your duty. So you've been told by the heritage expert that there is a negative impact. You've got to give considerable importance and weight to the discharge of the duty. And the concept of preserving in the section 72 duty means not doing any harm. So the expert has identified harm. You've got to have and give considerable importance and weight to that. You've also got the development plan policies, which militate against the grant of permission for this. And I think the other thing it's worth mentioning is that this isn't the only shop in the area. Indeed, the conservation area is characterised by these historic shop fronts. And there's a certain risk of creating a precedent here. If you approve this particular shutter, it would be difficult potentially to refuse other applications for shutters. And then before you know it, there's certainly a risk of eroding the special nature of the conservation area, and that was the reason it was designated. So just wanted to remind you of the legal duties there and try and sort of provide some context.
Councillor Back, would you like to come back?
Thank you, Chairman. Well, thanks for your very long discussion and bit of levering there. Claire, you spoke about something that's not in this report, what the heritage officer said. We haven't got that, and it's only coming to us tonight. And I still stand by what I've said. In any case, it is subjective. And when you're saying that are we calling it a hoarding or something above the shutters? Technical name for it, a fascia. The shop next door has got exactly the same, and it's in the same on the same building. If you go back, the one on the down on the right hand side, there's a fascia there. There's two fascias in actual fact on the same building. So you're saying that they're okay, but these are not. I still stand by my motion anyway.
Thank you. Councillor Officer, would you like to come in?
Yes, please, Chairman. So the application tonight is for the shutters themselves and the header boxes. So the actual fascias aren't up for discussion. So the site next door doesn't actually have those header boxes. And I also just wanted to go back to a couple of the other points. So just to point out that obviously, yeah, these photos are taken on Worthington Street themselves. So they're within the same conservation area, the same road. The end property of this row of terraces is supposed to be kind of like a bookend property. So you'd have that one on one side, and then you've obviously got this one on the other side, which I think is, you know, quite a pretty building. It's got a lot of architectural features to it, and some of these features are carried along to the host building. Granted, some of it has been a little bit tampered with, but it does follow along through to that building. So I think it's also quite important within that street scene and within the conservation area. Also, going back to the security measures point, there are other methods of security. So we're not saying that they can't secure the building at all, but there's armor plated glass, which apparently is 5 times stronger than normal glass, and when it shatters, it actually shatters into bigger pieces, so it's not the tiny little pieces that could also be dangerous. And there's also internal lattices, which can actually be found in some of the other buildings along this same street. There aren't any other examples of the roller shutters on this side of the street, and there are some on the other side, but they're obviously not up for discussion today. They're outside of the conservation area and don't have the benefit of planning permission themselves. And on the comments about the shutters, obviously Claire did comment about how, you know, another shop could move into that property. I know that in these photos they're taken at night time, but this is January, so there's obviously more hours of darkness. In the summer, when it gets lighter earlier, they would be seen in broad daylight as well, even in the current circumstances, the current opening hours. So I also just wanted to point that out as well.
Thank you, Officer. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Conservation isn't preservation. However, there's a principle at stake as well, and the principle, as our legal officer has stated, is the principle of conserving all of the area and setting a precedent when there are many known solutions, as our officer has attested to, including internal shutters, and you'll find in many conservation areas, possibly in wealthier towns, that they're actually designated as the only form of protection, and that is always an option. The armor plated glass I hadn't thought about till you mentioned, but that's an option. I can't go with the proposal because I believe the officer's recommendation is correct, and I would urge, rather than accepting that the other shops with shutters in the district has been the reason why this should be allowed, that we should look to enforcement to see what other breaches there are of planning and to actually regularise them through this method by making retrospective applications for us to consider.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Chair. I figure that members and officers might not agree on this, but I just wanted to come back on the signage, shop fronts and signage in conservation areas policy, because I'm slightly confused, I suppose. We had I know we're not talking about it, but we had an application, I think in the last meeting, where we were recommended to accept a light box, which directly contradicted the policy, and yet we were encouraged to accept that one. And now we're being told not to accept this one, and that I'm not really sure where this policy actually is being applied and when it's not. 3.5 of the policy, as has been quoted, says that these roller blinds are generally is not generally appropriate. So it doesn't say that they're not allowed. They're absolutely never to be used. It says they're not generally appropriate, and therefore, on occasions, I suppose they could be appropriate. I mean, you know, you look at the photos and you've got a bin out the front, you've got railings and you've got fly posting, and then I think we're quabbling over some roller shutters that might not be appropriate but could be appropriate. And so, yeah, I think if we're setting a precedent, I find it difficult, like other councillors, when I'm looking at the shop next door and shops down the road. I find that difficult when the wording of the policy doesn't actually say that we can't allow this. It just says that it's not generally appropriate, and especially when we're inconsistently applying such policies. I think I find that difficult to kind of follow that line of kind of direction. So just some points I wanted to make for members.
So would you like to come back at all? Or?
No, thank you. Councillor
Beanie.
Thank you, Chair. Sometimes these little applications that keep us here for longer than we should be, shouldn't they? Sometimes. Is there no way then? obviously I'm looking at legal and Claire for this. I appreciate what they're saying, and I think it's preserving what's behind there. And there's argument. I don't see the harm that maybe the heritage officer sees. Also, the fact we're potentially then having conversations about changing it to triple glazing or whatever glazing it is, which is then going to take away the glazing what's there anyway. So then the officers, without being disrespectful, you're on your own sort of recommendations. You're saying let's take away what's there and put it back with something that can be sort of kept, which is kind of silly. I don't know. So is there no way that we can condition this, that potentially this, whatever this shop owner is using it for, and let's hope it stays there for a very long time, is that he feels this is necessary to have this in place? But if it was to become an hairdresser's next time, or another estate agent, or a fish and chip shop, or something like that, is there no way that obviously the usage is kind of irrelevant to what the shop is being used for?
No.
I like it when you am I making you think, Dan?
Down to the policy.
It's potentially better than getting something that you're not happy with.
Yeah, the solicitor's just going to come in, councillors.
Thanks. Apologies to Councillor Back if I've already gone on too much on this one, but I did I did think there was one other point that was worth making, which is that it's a retrospective application for planning consent for the shutters. So what you're doing is either approving or not those shutters. I just thought it was worth pointing out that if you don't grant planning permission for this, that doesn't instantly mean that those shutters have to be ripped out. So the consequence of refusing it is that those shutters aren't authorised. They are therefore at risk of enforcement action. So the council would then have to consider whether to take enforcement action or not. And as you probably know from talking about enforcement action, that's a consideration of whether it's expedient in all of the circumstances of the matter to require something to be done. So I just wanted to sort of set this in its proper context, which is that your refusal to grant permission for this doesn't mandate the instant ripping out of those shutters, and it would then become an enforcement matter.
Councillor Knight. Kenton, sorry. Do you beg your pardon?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm more confused than ever now during this debate, which is for such a simple application, it's quite amazing. Getting down to the nub of it, we are arguing about, and if we could spot the difference between the two. So, as far as I understand it, we don't like the roller shutters covering the window at night, but I don't know, you go around many high streets, even some of the prettier streets in London, and old shop fronts always have roller shutters, don't they? So I'm less worried about that. I know you'll get back to we have to stick to our policies. And then we're arguing, are we arguing then we're upset about because there's a little bit of fenestration in the original thing and a little bit of plasterwork which is now being covered? Are we, is that some of the reasons why we're upset? Because if we're talking about the only way you can make this building safe is to put new glass in there, which is, or internal shutters, which I don't know, is, I always think is you're still destroying the look of the building anyway. So there is an issue there, isn't it? So because you can't, and from the business point of view, those tub and glass windows cost a fortune. Every time somebody decides to chuck a brick through it or crack it, then it costs you a fortune. But that's not really a planning issue, but it's more of a practical issue. But what we get down to then, and our legal has persuaded us that we have to stick to our policies. So we're arguing whether obviously the conservation officer feels the harm to our policies with PM1, HE2 and HE2, because the harm to the listed building and the conservation area, not listed building, conservation area, outweighs any benefit. But I suppose from a member's point of view, we could take an alternative view and say, in our opinion, there is not significant harm to those buildings because there's no loss of historic fabric doing this. Actually, it preserves historic fabric, which any other remedy would actually harm, wouldn't it? So we're only really looking and saying we don't like the look of those shutters at night. And I think I do appreciate the bookend argument, and the building the other end of the street is a far more attractive building, although it's supposed to be a bit of a bookend. But I think we probably hugely affected this building when we built roundabout next to it, and which is probably the biggest influence, and not many people probably sit and stare at this building while they're racing around the roundabout. And I do struggle with this because you think we have to help and preserve a vibrant town centre, don't we? And actually any cost or adverse cost to businesses could lose this shop forever, and then okay, we may not end up with shutters because it might be a house or something different. But I don't know. It's one of those hard ones, isn't it? I'm still wrestling with it, even though we've had a long debate on it, because is there a harm and should we be looking to do anything? And the argument, the fact that we don't have to take action. So we could say, OK, we refuse it, but perhaps we won't take any enforcement. But that's not in members' hands here. And we can hardly rely on that not to happen. So we could start an enforcement tomorrow if it's all refused. We don't know. We might never take enforcement against it. We might agree it's not expedient or in the public interest, but we agree. Then again, we might. So I don't really put much weight to that either, because we can't. It's not within our control. So it all comes down to whether we feel, and the conservation officer's advice, that there is harm to the conservation area through these, which we can feel differently to, but that's what I'm wrestling with. Whether there is harm, whether it is significant harm, whether we feel there's no harm, I don't know. But I think it's going to go down to the wire, and I'm not sure either. Yeah, I'm going to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just bring the chair, the officers back in.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we sort of heard that this is amazingly complicated for what is a very simple application, so I'll try to distill it a little bit if I can. So at the heart of this, the MPPF talks about whether there's no harm to a heritage asset, whether there's less than substantial harm, or whether there's substantial harm. I think reading the officer's report, I think we're clearly in a position where it's less than substantial harm from an officer's point of view. We've then heard the heritage officer, who didn't comment in the first place, but has now provided the the verbal update for committee, which has been read out. And again, I think that falls sort of within the camp of less than substantial harm. And then we've obviously heard from members tonight, and I think there's clearly a difference of opinion for some members as to whether or not there is harm. So the first thing that the MPPF requires us to do is to sort of decide, is there harm, and if so, what level? If the conclusion of members, sort of having listened to the evidence, is that there is a level of harm there, and it doesn't need to be a sort of significant level, it's just whether there is harm to that heritage asset,
then the next step in the test is whether there are public benefits which outweigh that harm. Again, with the report, we've looked at that. The applicant has sort of tried to identify the benefits in terms of the safety and security of the building, and I think that is a fair sort of comment that can be a material consideration which members should have regard for. But to counter that, I think the officer has identified that there are potential alternatives which could have a significantly less impact on the building. And whether that's whether that's replacing the glass itself, whether that's shutters of a different style, or whether they're inside the shop or outside the shop, whether there's a film on the glass to stop it sort of from breaking to the same extent. There are lots of things which I think, in fairness, the applicant hasn't sort of explained why those alternatives have been discounted or haven't been considered in the first place. So really I wanted to sort of try to simplify it in members' minds as to whether you believe that there is any harm being caused, and if there is harm being caused, it's incumbent on you to explain why the benefits or the public benefits outweigh that harm. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Back, can you give your termination, how you want to refuse, propose this application to refusal to propose?
Yeah, the officer in 2.10, no harm to residential amenity, so accords with the aims and objectives of the MPPF. So that's one. Officer also states 2.13 acknowledges there is a benefit in securing premises from crime. That's 2. And I think this is subjective. It's more of the committee don't see a problem with this than do see a problem with it. So I just think it's subjective. I can't see that it's any different to the shops next door. The fascias still cover up what's underneath them in 2 sides of that, and that's all one building. Plus one of the signs are on a dual carriageway. So I just, that's where I am anyway.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to be to go on about it. So are you saying that in your view there is no harm to heritage?
Advised we should grant or refuse due to less than substantial harm. So it doesn't have to be literally no harm at all. There's got to be a level where you can say, well, it's less than substantial, because you've got 2 or 3 levels above that. So yes, it may be may not be no harm, but if it's less than substantial, then you move up to substantial, and then you move up to more than substantial. So we're at the bottom end.
So we're at the point where there's less than substantial harm. So then the next step in the policy test is what the public benefits are that outweigh that harm. I think I would probably say that the no harm to residential amenity is a neutral. It's not a benefit, it's not a harm. So are we then saying that it's the prevention of crime, which is the public benefit, that you consider outweighs that harm?
Yes, but don't forget what you're saying, the residential amenity, you're saying, well, that doesn't really matter, but it's in the report. Sorry?
But as a neutral, I think it's no harm, but there's no benefit there, so it's not.
Well, it says there's no harm to residential amenity, so accords with the aims and the objectives of the MPPF. That's what's before us at 2.10. So I can't say, well, we could just ignore that.
Councillor Knight, do you want to come in?
Yes, please. Couple of things really. I'll go back to the heritage point of view. You could argue that by doing the shutter and covering up, you are actually protecting a heritage site. I would argue the value of that particular building as a heritage site in the first place. But if we're going to be pedantic about a fascia and a small piece of woodwork above, and perhaps some windows which have been there for many, many years. I'm sure most of us have walked past that shop hundreds of times. In fact, it's an improvement today on what it was probably a year or so ago. So from the heritage point of view, I'd say we're protecting it. From the public realm point of view, and I'll wait until you've stopped talking. And from the public point of view, I think anything that stops potential crime or attracting crime into an area is a good thing. I'm not entirely sure what this shop is at the moment. It used to be the accommodation shop, but I don't know what it is today. It's still an estate agent, is it? No, it says Dover Corner Shop. What? So it's like a convenience store, is it, or something? Yeah. So okay, so that makes it even more relevant, because convenience stores, by very nature, are places which do attract crime. They are always, you know, low level crime, pilfering, shop, etc., etc. Is an area throughout the town where security, and we as a council have security running around the town. They radio through to each other and say, look, something's going on here. We know it happens in the town. So at night, if that's left open, that's going to be broken into and it will be a target. I think what we are doing here, if we allow this, is to actually stop that at night. So in my opinion, we do on two fronts, the heritage and public. We are improving that. Now, I actually agree with Councillor Beanie. This is a shop, and it's a shop that will attract, you know, some of the not so good people in the town, I'm sure, at night. If it turned into, I don't know, the hairdressers or something like that, maybe that wouldn't attract the same people to want to break in. So therefore, security measures may be removed and turn it back into that beautiful heritage building that it clearly is to everybody. But from my point of view, we have the arguments we need to approve this, and I would still stick with my second, and I'd like to carry on in that position. Thank you.
Councillor Hill.
Chair, at long last. Right, we all believe in conservation, don't we? We do. Okay, and you've brought it before us, the planning committee. We've had a lot of discourse about it, haven't we, Councillor Beanie, over and over again? Yeah. And then you proffer up all manner of like legal speak and put the frighteners on us. That's what it seems like to me. But we all agree with conservation. We truly do. I want the public to know that. Okay. So I support Councillor Back.
Councillor Beanie, would you like to come in, please?
So we're part of freedom loss of the wording now. But this was a shop that was empty for a very, very long time, I think. After the accommodation shop came out of it, I think it was empty for a good several months, if not more. So potentially we could actually be arguing today that, with this application, that we are looking at it and converting it into a house or a flat. So that's another point of mine which would enhance me to think that at the moment the public harm is minor than what it potentially could be. We could be arguing over a completely different scenario here tonight. So let's just let the company roll with it and see what happens in a few years' time.
Right. I think we've all you know, would like to see this concluded. The only last comment I would make is I think Councillor Back, you were basically concluding less than substantial harm. But Councillor Knight, you are the seconder, but my understanding is you were basically saying there's no harm. So I think between you, you need to decide which one it is. Right, okay, great. So in that case, we can go with the less than substantial harm, and the public benefits are the reduction of crime. Oh yeah, yeah. I think as long as you're happy with that, then we can move on. Great, thank you.
And we'll delegate powers to finalise the wording to officers. Yeah. So there is a motion to approve the application which has been seconded, and that is on the grounds that the less than substantial harm will be outweighed by the public benefits of a reduction of helping to reduce crime, with the final wording to be delegated to officers. If you wish to approve the application, you should vote for the motion. If you do not wish to approve the application, you should vote against the motion or abstain. Can I please ask Gemma to start the vote and for members to cast their votes? We have 8 votes in favour of the motion, 1 abstention and 1 against. So that motion has been carried and the application has been approved.
Thank you. Moving on to item 8, application DV 250053, Fleetwood Farm Cottage, Richborough Road, Ashford. Sorry. 9 mobile shepherd huts. Officer, would you like to give your report, please?
Thank you, Chairman. So this application is for the change of use of land for the stationing of 9 mobile shepherd's huts as holiday accommodation with access, parking and landscaping, together with the retrospective raising of land. There are 2 updates to this application. Firstly, since the agenda was published, 2 additional objections have been received. The majority of concerns have previously been raised by existing objection comments. However, some new concerns have been raised. These include concerns relating to the conflict with policy AMP1 of the Ash Neighbourhood Plan, flooding risk, land stability relating to the land raising, and the fact no comment was received by the tree officer. These matters have been considered and addressed in the committee report, with the exception of land stability. No concerns were raised by environmental protection in this respect. It is not considered that shepherd's huts proposed, which are relatively insubstantial structures which will not require traditional foundations, would result in detrimental impacts with regards to land stability. Secondly, it's proposed to add a condition requiring details of refuge storage to be submitted and approved, as this was mistakenly omitted. This slide shows the proposed site location plan and satellite imagery of the site. The site was a former ash coppice which has since been predominantly cleared within the countryside. The perimeter of the site retains established trees and vegetation, as you can see in the image. This slide shows the proposed site layout plan and plans, elevations and section plans of the proposed shepherd's huts. This slide shows the existing, the former and proposed, the current site sections following the retrospective land raising of the site by unspecified materials by approximately 1 to 2 metres across the site. This slide shows the interior of the application site, which shows the remaining sporadic individual and clusters of trees. And the second photo shows the location of the proposed access onto Cooper Street Drive, which will involve the removal of a row of trees and vegetation. This slide shows further views of the exterior of the site from Cooper Street Drive, which shows existing trees and vegetation which will be retained. As set out in the report, local plan policies SP6 and E4 and paragraph 88 of the NPPF support tourism development and provision of additional holiday accommodation, including in the countryside where appropriate. The development is considered to adhere to the applicable criteria of policy E4 and is acceptable in principle. The application site is visually discrete by virtue of its siting, layout of surrounding roads and the enclosure of the site and much of the surrounding rural roads by established perimeter trees and vegetation. The proposed structures are modest in scale, unassuming in design and appearance, and finished in suitable materials. The proposal is considered to have limited prominence and wider visibility, would be suitably compatible with the rural countryside location, and screened and softened by retained and proposed tree and vegetation planting. The site has been subject to the retrospective land raising by unspecified materials by approximately 1 to 2 metres. Environmental protection require relevant pre-commencement conditions to ensure the site can be appropriately sampled post-land raising and prior to the commencement of the holiday accommodation use to avoid harm relating to contamination. These conditions shall be secured, which is considered to satisfactorily address the matter. As set out in the report, subject to necessary conditions which will be secured, the impact of the development upon residential amenity, highways, ecology, trees, archaeology, drainage and flooding is considered to be acceptable. It's therefore recommended that planning permission is granted, subject to conditions, and securing the SBA contribution. Thank you.
Okay, we've only got one speaker for objection, Suzanne Stevens. So please.
No,
Oh, objection during that time. Right.
I've looked at the proposed plan online and they've just answered one of my questions about the destruction of a row of trees, mature trees that have been there several years. I've lived there 40 years and they've been there as long as I have. Back in October, they put a data streaming thing to say how much, what traffic and what speed was going around there. Unfortunately, they put it there when the least traffic was going to be coming past. October is not a good month, very quiet round there. I've lived there 40 years. You never drive round there very fast because there's double bends either side of this property. You never know whether you're going to meet a car, a cyclist, a runner, a walker, or a huge great piece of farm machinery. This is a single track lane, only 10 feet wide, and when the Richborough level crossing is closed, which is a quite regular occurrence, the lane is the main diversion for all the traffic in the area. Plus the fishermen that use the lane to go to the lakes, which obviously they do on a daily basis. The road isn't a safe road because in the last year alone, 4 cars and vans have been in the dikes exactly opposite this piece of ground that is designated for these shepherd huts. Our other objection is the gateway wide enough for refuse lorry and septic tanker to go in, although I see no septic tank on the plans. As a resident and driver of large farm vehicles on Cooper Street for, as I say, over 40 years, I've witnessed several altercations between drivers, more so since the fishing lake was developed and the traffic rates increased considerably, usually because nobody wants to back round a bend to a passing place, which are few and far between. Our other wonder is, are dogs going to be allowed on this site, and if so, is it going to be fenced in securely to protect the local livestock against attack? Another thing was the spoil that was put there smells very unpleasant, and we wanted to know where it's come from and is it leaching into the watercourse. Why is a new access necessary for this perfectly good one off the Richborough Road that lorries use when dumping the spoil on the ground? Lastly, I would like to point out there are already more holiday accommodation on the Richborough Road than there are residential properties. Do we really need any more in the same area?
So would you like to come back at all? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. On the 20th of November 2025, a document was uploaded on the planning portal from a company called Ashford Topsoil, but the document itself is authored by Normec DETS Limited, and I saw that it was only page 2 of 7. I'm disappointed that pages 1 and 3 through to 7 weren't requested to finalise this report. The report just gives us some numbers which we can't interpret. So I did speak with officers, and I do see, and I note that our environmental protection team have suggested the a number of the planning conditions, but what I want to confirm is that, and I think it starts at planning condition 17 through to 21, those in themselves are very brief, but will the planning officer confirm that they will incorporate all of the quite comprehensive, virtually 3 pages of comment from our environmental protection officer, because land raising without any notice is an opportunity for contaminants to be dumped. And what I would want is that more than a desktop investigation, I would want to and would insist, if we do go with this, that we have physical examination of the or the potential for contamination. We don't know if it's there, but physical testing, appropriate physical testing, rather than a desktop. I don't want to accept, given that the paucity of the information supplied, I would be very concerned that other documents might be not provided. So comment, please.
Officer, would you like to come back, please?
I just wanted to clarify that the conditions that have been suggested were specified by the environmental protection team to address their concerns, and in their comment they did detail that it's necessary for the conditions to be secured to ensure the site can be appropriately sampled post land raising and prior to the commencement of the holiday accommodation use, so that will be incorporated into the conditions.
Okay, thank you, because the first paragraph from our development, our environment protection officer, says a desktop study shall be undertaken, and I want to ensure that we go beyond the desktop study to a physical study.
I can't foresee that would be a problem. As I say, they've specified the wording, but I haven't got the exact wording they've given right now, but we can make sure that can be incorporated, because that is the intention of the conditions. That's what they've said. They want to make sure the site is sampled prior to it being used as a holiday accommodation use. So that certainly can be incorporated.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Back.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not quite sure. EV charges are covered by building control now, aren't they? If they're not, okay. Where will the hot tubs? I know we spoke about this at chairman's briefing, but for the rest of the committee and the public, where will the hot tubs be emptied to? And what is a package sewage plant? If I can come back afterwards.
So the hot tubs will be emptied to the package sewage, the sewer. Sorry, what is it called again? The package treatment plant, as well as just foul sewage as well. And a package treatment plant is the Environment Agency's preferred method of foul drainage disposal in locations which cannot connect to the public foul sewage network. A package treatment plant is essentially a mini sewage treatment plant which processes and treats wastewater to produce clean effluent, which can be discharged to ground within a drainage field, as proposed on site. Package treatment plants are subject to the EA's general binding rules and are also subject to Part H of the building regulations. We're also securing a condition requiring details of the package treatment plant to ensure it's satisfactory.
So there's no septic tank, basically.
So it's a better method of disposal than a septic tank.
Okay. Well, this is supported by SP6 and E4 paragraph 88 of the MPPF, which supports tourism and holiday accommodation. So I move to accept the officer's recommendation to grant.
I have a couple of questions on the waste bins, where they were going to be stored and everything on the site, and how they were going to be disposed of. Thank you.
So I reviewed the plan, and there isn't actually a refuge storage area specified on the proposed layout plan, which is why I propose the condition is added for the details of the refuge storage to be provided and approved in writing prior to the commencement of prior to the first use of the development. So that will be addressed by the condition. I don't know exactly how that will be collected. However, I'm not exactly sure how it will be collected, but I can add that to the condition.
I have a proposer. Do I have a seconder at all? Councillor Knight. Councillor Back, are you happy with those extra bits put on the conditions about the wheelie bins and everything?
Oh, sorry, were they conditions that you wanted adding? Yes, I'm happy.
Okay. Councillor Knight, are you happy with that? Does anyone else wish to speak on to that at all? Councillor Kenton, would you like to speak, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just those conditions were added in. I'm sorry, I was just reading through the detail, but did we include the full contamination survey? Because Councillor Nee was talking with the officer about there was going to be a full study. But on so, in my opinion, the condition 17, instead of saying desktop, which will achieve nothing, just looking at desktop, should be a full contamination survey. And when you put that condition in there, then we know it's going to be sampled and done if it's a full contamination survey, don't we? Because we don't know. I mean, half the issue here is we don't know what's in that soil, do we? Or whatever it is in there. And over nearly a hectare, so just over 2 acres, there could be about, I don't know, 40,000 tonnes in there. I don't know what it is, but they've raised it 2 metres. That's a lot of stuff which could have anything in. So we need to make sure what's there. So there should be a full contamination survey, not a desktop study. And if that's added in, I'm quite happy.
I think that's fine to change the title of the condition to a full contamination survey. The intention of environmental protection was to ensure the site can be appropriately sampled post land raising and prior to the first use of the holiday accommodation. As I say, the conditions were specified by environmental protection, so I apologise if there's any omission, but certainly that was their intention, so I can't foresee any issue with changing that.
Councillor Back, are you happy with the wording changing, please?
Investigation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Councillor Knight? Yep. Does anyone else wish to speak on that at all? Councillor Williams?
The packaged sewage treatment, won't that be smelly?
I don't believe so. I believe it's it's within the ground, and it will be designed to prevent that. Obviously, that will be something that they would have foreseen. As I say, it is the preferred method of foul disposal for sites that can't be located to the sewage network, can't be connected, sorry, to the sewage network. I believe that's all considered as part of the design of a package treatment plant. I'm not an expert in package treatment plants. You know, it's quite a technical detail, but we are proposing a condition for details of the package treatment plant to ensure it's acceptable. But I don't believe there's any objection in principle to the package treatment plant, which is the preferred method of sewage disposal.
So there is a motion to approve the application which has been seconded, and that is in accordance with the report recommendation, but with one condition, condition 17 amended to require a full contamination survey, and then another condition requiring details of refuse storage and collection. I think that was it, wasn't it? So if you wish to approve the application, you should vote for the motion. If you do not wish to approve the application, you should vote against the motion or abstain. Can I please ask Gemma to start the vote and for members to cast their votes? We have 9 votes in favour of the motion and 1 against, so that motion has been carried and the application has been approved.
Thank you. Moving on to item 9, application DV 2500736, land on Northbourne Road, Great Mungem, for erection of 11 dwellings. Can the officer say the report, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. Got a few updates for you. So since the report was published, 2 additional comments have been received in objection. These don't raise any additional material considerations that have not been assessed within the report already, and they don't impact the recommendation. Also, the Parish Council have contacted me and raised the point that their second comment dated the 6th of February wasn't included in the report, so I'll read it out in full now. Parish Council object to this application as it will remove the only on-street parking on the northwestern side of the village and remove all parking for churchgoers. The Parish Council would like to suggest that the track-to-track is not required and suggest that it is turned into a community car park. This would be for the benefit of the church and local residents. Lastly, under paragraph 4, it states that the application will be subject to reconsultation. This should have been removed following the consultation period ending on the 13th, and this has been left in there because the application was originally on the agenda for last month. This was removed due to some concerns relating to badges. This has all been addressed within the report because that's been amended since that time. So please disregard that on paragraph 4. So it's the aerial image and then the site location plan. It shows the layout and the access road, which is accessed from Northbourne Road, and then the street elevations, which I have included in the report. These photos are taken from standing on Mungem Church Close, and this is looking up and down the road. And again, this is taken from where the proposed site entrance will be. So I think most of everything's covered in the report. It's quite a detailed report, so I won't go over everything now, but I would like just to remind members that it's an allocated site. It's slightly over the allocation number of allocated for 10, and we've got 11 on the site, but it's still at a lower density than we'd normally expect on this sort of development. It's recommended for approval and welcome any questions. Thank you.
Okay, we have 2 speakers on this. The one for objection, Chris Saville. Can you come down to this side, please? Thank you.
Members of the Planning Committee, to reiterate what the officer has just updated you with, which wasn't on the report when I prepared this, Great Mungem Parish Council were originally neutral, but after careful review of the amended plans, GMPC have decided that in line with the conservation area being extended, this plot is allocated for development, but cannot accept the damage this application as it stands will have on the local environment. Mungem is already blighted by an unfinished bankrupt estate adjacent to the Mungem Road Conservation Area. The church conservation area now includes Old School House immediately adjacent to the application sites, which is within Ripple Landscape Character Area. NPPF Para 135 sets out that planning decisions should ensure that development functions well and adds to the overall quality of the area. The nature of the raised plot and the large buildings will make them unnecessarily visible. The Heritage and Housing officers didn't agree with the housing styles and sizes as they don't match existing stock and they border the conservation area. The entrance is too close to a bend well known for accidents. It could be situated much nearer Church Close, where traffic has to slow naturally for the right angle bend. Double yellow lines to be added all the way down that stretch of rural road will make speeding worse and remove the only on-street parking in the west of Great Mungem. Virtually all parking used for St Martin's Church will be lost. These impacts are severe and contrary to NPPF Para 116. The site is hardly sustainable as there's no public transport, no footpaths to the village and no amenities to walk to anyway. Regarding the area supposedly designated for farm access, no tractors have accessed the field here in the 35 years that I've lived there. It would make far more sense to see that that redundant space is used as a community car park and make up for the churchgoers' parking spaces that will be lost due to the new estate entrance. A few 3-bedroom houses on an exclusive estate do not comply with Policy SP5's requirement for 1 or 2-bedroomed affordable houses on schemes of 10 dwellings or more. NPPF states that great weight should be given to the conservation of heritage assets, irrespective of whether or not any potential harm is substantial. Members of the Planning Committee, large two-storey houses next to existing bungalows adjacent to the extended conservation area, likely more than 20 additional cars. The loss of the majority of church and on-street parking hardly results in little impact for local villages, St Martin's Church or the conservation areas. And I call on you for refusal in its present form, as there is no public benefit to mitigate the harm that this application will do.
Is there a speaker to support the effort? Grell Filmer, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the applicant in support of this full planning application, which seeks the consent for the construction of 11 new homes. The site is allocated for residential development under Dover Local Plan Policy SAP 16, site reference GTM 003. The allocation sets out an indicative capacity for the site of 10 dwellings subject to technical considerations. The proposals comply with the site-specific matters and requirements as detailed by the criteria of the allocation. This includes that vegetation should be retained and enhanced, a landscape buffer provided, and harm to heritage assets minimised or avoided, alongside the site to be accessed from Northbourne Road whilst providing a street frontage. The submitted technical information demonstrates that the site can comfortably demonstrate and accommodate 11 homes. The scheme provides for 36% affordable housing, which is in excess of policy requirements. The provision of these properties has also been agreed with Dover's housing officer. The proposals also include a formally equipped play area located centrally within the site, substantial B&G, and the provision of over 50 new trees, with 5 new trees per dwelling over and above the requirements of policy CC8. From a design perspective, the proposed homes are compatible with the character of surrounding buildings and would be respectful of this settlement edge location. The design of the proposals before you has been informed by ongoing collaborative working with your officers, which we thank them for. And the result of this collaboration is a high quality and sustainable development which integrates within the existing village of Great Mondrum. The applicant continues to work alongside KCC Archaeology to agree the written scheme of investigation, which will enable the applicant to undertake any necessary investigative works. Critically, statutory consultees have not raised any technical objections to the application, with no objection raised by KCC Ecology, Flood and Water Management, Highways, or Heritage. Indeed, no objections have been raised by Dover Council's in-house consultees. Your officers have recommended that this application is approved, and we therefore respectfully request that you endorse this. Thank you.
Officer, would you like to come back at all? Open to members. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I wonder if the officer could just comment on the remaining parking. Clearly they're going to lose parking because there's a new access being created, but further along the road I keep hearing references to double yellow lines, but all the planning drawings I see have got vehicles parked in the road. So can you just tell me where these yellow lines are going to be on the existing road, please?
Officer.
Thank you. So the planning drawings themselves don't show any double yellow lines. However, because there is a vehicular access there, in order to secure visibility, it's likely that double yellow lines will be required. That would be done through a Section 278 agreement with Kent County Council. So that would follow safety audits and any consequential alterations to the road that are required to accommodate that. Thank you.
Just come back. So will that sterilise the road as far as Mondrum Church Close and further beyond, do you think? And obviously I don't want the definitive because that's an impossible question, but would it be double yellow lines just to protect the entrance, or do you envisage it going all the way through to the bend?
So I can't say definitively how far they would go, but I would suggest they probably would go at least as far as Mondrum Church Close and up to the bend to the north. Just I say looking at what that distance would be and knowing what the speed of the road is.
Thank you.
Any other councillors at all? Councillor Williams?
Thank you. I'm very concerned about the sustainability of this site. There's no public transport, no shops, no footpaths, and a long walk to the local primary school at the other end of Munjum along main roads. So I don't think it's at all sustainable, which worries me. A couple of other things. Can you tell me how many 3-bedroom, how many 4-bedroom, and how many 5-bedroom houses there actually are, and how many are affordable, please?
Officer, would you like to come back in, please?
If I just, whilst the officer's just looking through the notes, I'll probably answer the point on sustainability. So I think, as the second speaker said, this is an allocated site. So it has been allocated as part of the council's district-wide strategy for the provision of housing, and that does include some sort of smaller allocations such as this in villages. It is appreciated that these villages don't have the same level of facilities and services as certainly even bigger villages, let alone towns, but I think that strategy is something that has been established. And I say it is an allocation for that reason.
Sorry, on the housing side of things, so it'd be 2 3-bedroom homes for affordable social rent, 1 3-bedroom home for so it's 2 3-bedroom homes which would be for affordable or social rent. It's 1 3-bedroom home as a first home, and 1 3-bedroom home for shared ownership, which is considered to be policy compliant and exceed the expectation for the affordable housing.
How many market homes does that leave?
That'd be 6.
And they're what, 4 and 5 bed houses, are they? You didn't put it in, did you?
Sorry, Councillor Williams. I should have included that in the report, and the agent's probably kicking themselves because I don't have the answer. But they're the larger properties, which would be the market housing. So the 4+ bedroom ones is the market ones. The smaller ones, which has been amended in accordance with what the housing officer has requested, is for the social housing.
Got another sort of fairly small point. On page 76, you talk about heads of terms, purpose, amount and project notes. If you go down to artificial grass pitches, which is towards the maintenance and or upgrades of the new 4G pitch and clubhouse at Freeman's Way, that currently isn't with DDC. KCC are, I believe, selling it to the highest bidder, and we don't know who that's going to be. So that might need some amending.
Thank you for that. So yeah, we are aware that the Freeman's Way site has been up for sale for I think about 6 months now, isn't it? That request has come from KCC. However, I think it is a fair point to raise. So I think we'll have to go away and speak to KCC and potentially open up the wording of the section 106 so that if that land is sold, that there's an alternative scheme provided. Whilst speaking, I just wanted to sort of come back on the affordable housing element that's being proposed. I think just for fairness to members, just to say that within the section 106, we will have to look at potential sort of cascades as to if it can't be delivered on site, whether there's any potential for an off-site payment. And I just thought I should make that members aware of that.
Why couldn't it be delivered on site? Because you've got 3-bedroom houses there.
So in terms of sort of viability, if there is a case that's being made, we don't want to, as I promise members, that it's going to be delivered on site where there's a potential that it wouldn't be.
Councillor Knight.
You just stole my thunder there on that one. But this is an allocated site, and it's a relatively modest site, to be fair. The actual layout actually looks pretty good to me, and for a nice change, the screening, it looks like we're having new planting, new trees. The 30% affordable homes I would rather see delivered on site than off site, so that's a little worrying, but I'm sure we'll work our way around that. The gentleman from the parish council pulled up probably one comment that made me look at it again, and that was the access to the site. But clearly, in my opinion, you can't move an access nearer to a corner. You have a junction on Munsham Church Close. You don't want to be planted opposite there. So I think the access is exactly where it's got to be. Okay, we're going to get some yellow linings. That'll take away some obstruction. So in my opinion, I think this is perfectly acceptable, and I would like to propose that we accept the officer's recommendations.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Woodgate. Councillor Lee, would you like?
Yeah, if I can just mention, I'm concerned on the affordable housing because the application that was pulled from the last meeting, I would have been asking why there was no mention at all of affordable housing within the report. And now it's been introduced, and up until I heard the comment about an off-site provision, I was perfectly content with the whole of the proposal. And now suddenly the alarm bells are ringing.
Yes.
That it's been introduced as a SOP because we hear it and we think, yeah, we're going to get it. But there's now suddenly this threat that it may be, and I view it as a threat that it would be provided off-site, because a comment like that doesn't come from nowhere. And one of the advantages to me of having this site in Great Munsham with affordable housing is it will meet the local housing need for the younger people and people on low incomes who are forced out of the area, because looking just at the open market element of that, they're premium houses which are required as well, and it is further pressure on these younger people or people on low incomes to actually have to move out of the area. So I've suddenly got an alarm bell ringing, and I want some confirmation that this isn't a done deal and that we're seeking to actually include it in the approval if we approve.
Hi, members. Sorry for the delay there. I'm going to come in here. I have to apologise. This is my fault because I was looking through the report quickly when Councillor Williams asked the question about the affordable housing mix, and I mistakenly thought it hadn't been set out in the report. And so I suggested to the officers that they may want to sort of say that this is the current thinking, but just bear in mind that sometimes when we're negotiating the legal agreement, you know, there can be changes basically. But having spoken to the officers again, it appears everything is set out in the report. So what you are considering is what is said in the report. Should there be any changes to that, then obviously we would have to advise the applicant that you know, that may need to come back before committee if they were looking to make any changes. So please don't panic. That's my fault, and be reassured that what's before you tonight is what's in the report, so that they are proposing the affordable housing on site as things stand, and the mix that was read out to you as well. We're just aware that sometimes, you know, things do move forward, but at this stage we've got no indication to say that anything's going to change. But if it was, then we would have to consider that as and when it happened.
Councillor Hill.
Kind of answered my question, but what I was about to say was off-site where, because it's a kind of pretense, isn't it? To me. Sorry, there you go.
So thank you, Chair. Just to come back on my concerns, while you're speaking just now, Claire, I looked at the superseded planning drawing from the first submission, and it appears to be exactly the same layout. So that means, I assume, that the affordable units have just been reallocated or allocated within that. Is that correct? Okay, so you're nodding, so don't come back. Thank you.
Could I formally request that if there is a change in the viability, that it comes back to committee? It isn't just an officer decision, it comes back to committee.
We have a proposal on the total. It's been as the officer's recommendation. I should ask the clerk to.
Sorry, Chair. Can you ask the proposer to consider Councillor Williams' amendment before we go to the vote?
As far as I was concerned. Thanks, Chair. I don't think an amendment was required there, Councillor Nee, because I think it was just Councillor Williams putting on record that if there was any request to amend the affordable housing provision, that she would like it to come to committee, because as you probably know, the head of planning has got delegated authority to deal with deeds of variation to any 106 agreement, but we'll certainly put it on record that Councillor Williams has requested that. It's not the subject matter of a condition or something, so I don't think there's any need to amend the motion.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can put it in the minutes. Yeah.
In the minutes. Right, thank you very much. Could you, clerk, please to do the proposal, please? Thank you.
There is a motion to approve the application which has been seconded, and that's in accordance with the report recommendation. If you wish to approve the application, you should vote for the motion. If you do not wish to approve the application, you should vote against the motion or abstain. Can I ask Gemma to start the vote and members to cast their electronic vote? We have 10 votes in favour of that motion, so that motion has been carried and the application has been approved.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 10, application DV 25-01283, the Berry 23 Cannon Street Road, Warmer, a change of use. Can I have the officers to report, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Just included the aerial image and the site location plan. The size of the building won't change as part of the proposals. So this is just the street elevation of the Berry. There's no changes proposed to the front elevation. So the image on the left is the proposed rear elevation, including the sliding doors here, and it's just included to show what the rear elevation currently looks like with the French doors, and that's the only external change. The first floor of the property is already under residential use, so it's just including the ground floor, so there's no net gain in terms of, say, no dwellings, there's no contributions required, and the application is recommended for approval.
Thank you very much. We have no speakers on this, so we go straight in. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Ever since I moved to this area, I've done my utmost to make this pub viable. And it's sad to see it go, and unfortunately in this world it's inevitable that some pubs will fall. One of the objections, and it really rankled with me given the intensive work that I did in terms of its viability, was that they said that the owner didn't try hard enough to make it work, and on record the owners there have done as much as they could ever be expected and more. It was a quality pub with a quality environment, and unfortunately the economics have killed it. Oh, and I sadly move that we accept the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, we've got 50 supporting this application. There's no genuine interest in the pub through advertisements with the commercial estate agent. So keeping open is not sustainable. I second the motion, but change the colour. It's very offensive on the eye.
Councillor Knight, did you want to come in at all, or you just yeah? Does anyone else wish to speak on it, members? We have a motion on the table to be approved. Officer, can you do the thing? Thank you.
There is a motion to approve the application which has been seconded. If you wish to approve the application, you should vote for the motion. If you do not wish to approve the application, you should vote against the motion or abstain. If I can ask Gemma to start the vote and members to cast their electronic votes. We have 10 votes in favour of the motion, so the application has been approved.
Right, thank you. Moving on to item 11, application DV 25-00144, Diamond Cottage, Langdon Avenue, Ash. Erection of a self-build bungalow. Can the officer give us a report, please? Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, Chair. Good evening, members. So planning permission sought for a 4-bed, 1.5-storey bungalow. This will be constructed as a self-build project. The application site is located adjacent to the settlement confines in Ash. It's accessed along Langdon Avenue, which is a private unmade road with no through traffic, which leads off of New Street in Ash. And the site is actually currently part of the substantial garden of Diamond Cottage. At the end of Langdon Avenue, there is actually a footpath which links to public right-of-way EE 110. The drawings show an in-out arrangement which would facilitate off-street parking. There's an existing storage building which you can just see at the front of the site in the corner. That's actually to remain. And as a self-build project, mandatory BNG doesn't actually apply, but notwithstanding that, biodiversity enhancement measures are actually proposed, and they will be subject to a condition to secure these are delivered. The design of the bungalow, it's slightly larger in scale to what you'll see opposite on the other side of Langdon Avenue. But that being said, obviously Diamond Cottage itself, which you can just see in the photograph here to the right, is actually a two-storey cottage, which has had various modifications and extensions over time. So in terms of the actual proposed bungalow, if I just go nip back to the plans there, you'll see that the bulk and the scale of the roof, it's been designed with sort of barn hips, dormers to just keep down the scale of it so that it visually and design terms fits in with the street scene. Subject to the payment of the SAMS contribution and also the completion of a unilateral undertaking for the self-build, the proposal is considered compliant when considered against the relevant planning policies and guidance. I'll just show you some photos which I've briefly touched upon. So you can see these photographs are actually off New Street, looking down Langdon Avenue on the right hand side, the sort of creamy coloured roof is Diamond Cottage itself, and on the left you can see the roof profiles of the other bungalows on the opposite side. You can see there's already sort of a vehicle access gate into the site, into the garden, and so it's not new to have a vehicle access into this garden land. Photograph there just of the outbuilding which I mentioned, which is to remain. And again, the garden, just looking up towards the rear of the site, you can see a relatively new residential development at the far of the garden there. And that's all. Any questions? Thank you.
Rachel, can you come down, please?
Good evening. Thank you for having us here this evening. I'm just here just to give an insight into what we're proposing, which is a self-build for myself and my family. We plan to build this and then allow for my parents to move into Diamond Cottage, which is next door. I would like to address, I think there's been a little bit of misunderstanding from other members of the public when we first moved there of our intentions. I strongly believe they thought that we were developers, such we wanted to use it for a commercial purpose, which is not the case. Our intentions are to make it as a family hub as such. Yeah, so to build the 4-bed, which would accommodate ourselves, and then the cottage for our parents. The previous tenants, they had that for around 40 years. Unfortunately, the past 5 years, there was a lot of sort of overgrown and mess and rubbish that had built up on the site. We've since cleared that, and we planted over sort of 75 trees, shrubs and bushes, and try and basically restore it to what it formerly was. The road itself is actually unadopted. We've kind of taken it upon ourselves to take out necessary repairs to just make the environment better for ourselves, any other neighbours, and yeah, we're just looking to make this work. Yeah, thank you for having us.
Officer, do you want to come back at all? Okay. Councillor Back.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, mandatory biodiversity net gain does not apply to this as it's a self-build. It doesn't appear to overlook any other properties, conforms to SB4. An objector did state that the property will cause harm to a listed building. I did ask you at Chairman's briefing, you explained, if you can explain to the rest of the committee, it was the shrubbery, and I couldn't see that there was a problem on Tuesday when we was at the briefing.
Yeah, certainly. I think just to explain a bit of background, when the application first came in, there were actually 2 applications submitted, and the design and access statement that was written applied to both the application before you this evening and also for the rebuild of Diamond Cottage itself, which has subsequently, as it stands, been withdrawn. And so that actually referenced the listed building, the shrubbery, which this one. Well, I was going to point it out if I can. Yeah, lovely. Okay, so if I just point out, yeah, exactly where the mouse is here. This is, this is this is the shrubbery which goes on to actually on New Street, and it is at least, well, it's such a substantial distance away, and from this application you've actually got the physical building of Diamond Cottage itself, so there is no impact at all on that listed building.
Thank you, Chairman. I accept the officer's recommendation to grant permission.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to commend the applicant for their actions on the site anyway, because to hear somebody so young, yeah, compared with some of us anyway, planting that many trees on an area like this, I think it's really nice to see. I actually grew up in Whitfield, and my first home was a bungalow, but it didn't look anything like this, which I don't know how you can call it a bungalow, but that's besides the point. I think the self-build idea, the bungalows that's proposed on this land, is perfectly acceptable. So I'd like to second Councillor Back's proposal. Thank you.
Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. A question first of all. Is because Ash Parish Council initially said this was outside the village boundary, is it determined if it's within or without?
Officer?
It's outside of the boundary, but it's adjacent to, so therefore when applying policy SP4 it's immediately adjacent to. I mean, Diamond Cottage, the existing dwelling itself, is within, and then the boundary just runs along the side, so this is policy compliant.
Thank you. So I'm going to vote with the proposal, but I would urge the committee to remember to the last item at the last committee meeting, only just over 2 miles away from here, a property adjacent to but outside the village boundary on a very similar looking property with, if you look at the property proposed with the smaller properties around it, that the parallels to me are exactly the same. Yet one of those, which was last month's, was recommended for refusal, and this one for approval. And for myself, last month I'd have approved it willingly. It's just to point out that there's a level, and we've already discussed it this evening, about application of policy, the harm, etc., that it does. But I totally approve of this. I will be voting for it.
Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. I think it a wonderful idea, and I wish them all the luck in the world.
Any other members wish to speak? We have a proposal on today's to move the recommendation. Can you carry on, Officer, please?
There is a motion to approve the application which has been seconded, and that's in accordance with the report recommendation. If you wish to approve the application, you should vote for the motion. If you do not wish to approve the application, you should vote against the motion or abstain. Can I ask Gemma to start the vote and for members to cast their votes? We have 10 votes in favour of the motion, so that motion has been carried and the application has been approved.
Thank you, members and everything. Thank you for your attendance this evening. I'd like to thank the staff and the officers for attending and helping out, and we should definitely close the meeting, please. Thank you.